All right. Initiating programs locations of 5, 6, 7. Line connection high setting. You know how we sequence its calculation interference. There's a lot of calculation line calculation settings. Off channel, off sequence, off patterns. The operation line signals really has to recognize the Wi-Fi set locations. This all levels is channel streams. The recognition of time setting is in calculations. So this usually happens from time to time when you really don't understand the astral visions of your astral realms. To understand where you are is to understand what happens when okay. So the physical adaptation is no longer in its existence. You're in the astral projection of yourself. Okay? There's no more positions of dualities. The duality is split into one line setting. The connections to your astral body, the astral realms, astral connections, the astral locations of its connection settings, is recognizing where you are in your own space of time. Concept of its value, which is vast, needs to know where it is in acceleration. Okay, so the adaptation is levitation. Your light stream. In that connections, you're always working with your 12 foundation graph lines. Now that's connections with computer recognition. It's all set location. When you come out of your body, you start to see all equations, and it doesn't make any sense, right? Because you are now where you're supposed to be, where you're always supposed to be. It comes out of its consciousness to its super of its consciousness. The subterranean level is the line communication that levels its system. The position location comes into 5 atmosphere. Okay, so you got the 7. So understanding the 7 bodies of water is understanding the 5 atmospheres you have to reach. So in that set locations, lines of an astral connection. So you come out of your body. Works. When you're like out of your body, every concept is like being in a perception line. You look at your hands, yellow comes into its levitation, especially in the ground line setting. So the astral connections of itself, okay, the outer line setting, line position of space, space command, or it understands its Earth perception setting. Everybody is in a different communication of its own set system of 12 DNA. This is all calculated and modified to 144 and 244 set locations. How to use it is all levels of vast, the volume of velocity. Okay. And again, you start with the E equals MC squared. E equals MC diamond. E equals MC geometry setting line calculation system of a hexagonal calculations of a tetrahedron. It's all set in location. Okay. So once the avatar really understands the travels of what it's doing, everything starts making sense. Okay, why it exists. Okay, so that's the importance that you all have to understand how this works through its equation, because once it understands the astral travels and the astral connections of that set system, everything starts connecting. everything starts connecting, which is amazing. Okay. So, all right. So we got 30 settings, 30 track line communications, and 30 realms. Okay. 333. So that's 3 center line calculations, 3 operation surface, into 3 triangle set lines, and 3 line calculation settings. So this is heart, mind, and soul. Line calculations. 12,000 signatures, 12,000 lines to its clock, at 24,000 line setting into clock line communication, into levitation at ground setting. It's all about balancing the grounds. So the rotation spin and the connections to how fast it goes is all levels of vast, volume, velocity, acceleration, and Mach. Okay, recognizing that you are in the astral connections of astral realms of astral travels of yourself. You have to start accepting and start living inside your system. Okay, it's the inner line of everything through technology. It's the technology of you to understand the energy graphs, the Schumann resonance, the vibrational graph lines, the block line settings, the block interference. It's important to understand why you go to school. So the connections to you is positions of its avatar, which is also you. So when I say also you, it's always, always you. You are always interception with you. It's a connection to higher levels of you. That's it. That's all it is. You're integrated now. Okay. So you have the astral self and the condition of the consciousness in one. So the first position, location, and activation line comes out, right? Tries to understand what's going on, looks at itself, right? And it's looking, it's looking, both looking, right? So it's position locations, and then it realizes it comes back in its set location. It integrates it. Okay. So once it integrates into one, it comes one setting, one channel, one operation, one stream, one clocking. Now, when I say one clocking, one time setting, the connections to the integration of the avatar is all levels of infusion. This is where it comes into harmonize into its infusion setting. This is where you take the atom and the electron. It gets to know its system in its electrical field setting. Okay. So when you understand that, then you understand the process to its set locations. All right. All right. Andy calculations, all of us, Laura calculations, Heather, Sam, Captain, Gypsy. All right. So there's a lot of offline signals and levitation line calculation graph lines now, guys. So try to get instability, try to drink your waters, try to stay grounded. You got gravitational boats. You have to learn how to use that. Getting position locations, all line settings, records location. You guys are already traveling already in set positions, seeing Einstein and seeing Dolores Cannon. High setting in track location and position locations to all levels of measure. So it's incredible what we're coming into all set locations here, guys. All right. All right, Danielle. Okay, so line calculation is really understanding the travel setting. A travel setting is all set locations. You have zero line rotation. Zero line rotation sets lines and locations. Now we're going to start off all calculations. Team set. Directing signal location levitation. Levitation line conditions the box. Position location of triangle. Triangle line condition of system 2. Line calculation line interference. 9 lines in line interference. 0 line rotation. 0 position. 9 line conditions. Equal line conditions into docile calculations. Line 0 is 1 line position. 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4, 0, 5 set location, 0, 6, and 0 set location setting. All right, so you saw set location levitation lines, ground lines, and line in position. So recognition line communication system is all about understanding set lines, Einstein communications, all levels, high calculations into plateau line rotation and interference and circulation system, pattern defense lines, high set position locations, generation line setting. So I'm going to set up position location and perimeter locations for you to high communications to see Einstein set lines and Dolores Cannon in unification setting, rotation surface, setting direct location settings. Now, plateau division location, the formulas of the equation location is its box to its triangle, sending 2 lines, sending line interference, equal line conditions, high system, putting line communications into 2 times lines of 1, line connections is 2, equal line conditions of box position location, another box line setting, rotation surface to another triangulation line interference, and line conditions of 12, equal line conditions of 24, setting direct locations. So the 2 line sentence location settings, 2 line calculation interference, 4 line setting, circular 24 line rotations into gravity line rotations. Now the shift anomaly sets line communications into 3 set locations, into a pyramid set lines into a UFO line rotation, the scanning set location is center operation set location. Done by equation. All right. Recognition line calculation formulas equation location, how you set these things up in position. All right. Levitation location of the box, the triangle line connection line system into 6 line center and 7 line is an 8 line setting. Recognition locations line interference 9 over 3, position over pi, high set locations. Get the team set in set location setting, alternate calculations into all set line setting in recognition calculation. Putting your line settings in all set locations. All right. So in nano set line calculation system, team sets, high generation streamlines into vortex location chambers, high set location Einstein in set locations in direct locations into Dolores Cannon. Bending space in set location. All right, so bending space line calculation. There. Recognition line calculations into a blip. Setting calculation of 0 line into 0 line position locations into bracket calculations, and then we add a line position of 7 equal line condition system in position of 5. That sets line position of 12. 12 line setting into 12 equals 2 line rotations. The equal line calculation north, west, east line in track lines. South line communication into its diamond core shift. Indirect signal in set locations. Down by equation. All right. 20 minutes on the clock line setting. Have fun. Okay, so you're seeing Einstein and Dolores all through set location of formula. Hooah! All right. Now, as you go through line setting locations into the setting, recognize all levels of 0, rotation surface, into 3 set locations. All right. So that's 1 line setting into 2 line rotations, into 3 set locations, into 4 positions, into 5 set locations, setting in direction. All right. Now, high set location is a laser line, so 3 set locations. Okay. Now, crisis signals. Remember, right over left, left over right. So right goes over to the left, and left goes over to the right location. Setting direct signals into a position of a operation signal that comes into plateau calculation to its holographic screen in line calculation streamlines into a Merkaba channel line streamline rotations in direct signal. A hologram. Okay. So understanding the hologram is understand the security set location settings. All right. Recognition time locks sequence locations into 3 box location settings. All right. So time frequency time lines is 1 box line rotations. Now this puts you allocate line calculation to 30 set line conditions. So Fibonacci swirl line and our rotation circle in set location. Now, 2 line center line and position locations comes into a position to another blip that sets position locations into high setting. Okay. Higher levels of security in perimeter position line condition. See, you're always putting security lines in set location settings. Now the reckoning line interference of 1 equals line calculation of 0, 0, 0, bracket location of 3. Lines of 2, 2, 2, 2, bracket locations in position locations and line setting of 6. 3 lines equals lines of box into triangulations into Fibonacci sequence into another sequence line calculations, setting a line and a perimeter line into center operation string location. Done by equation. All right. Okay. So once we get into that signal, we come into the alpha delta beta. Alpha, delta, beta. Alpha, delta, beta. All right. So beta line signal line interference, ground line rotation interference is set locations. This is monotone line rotation interference into theta communication. Right. Boxing position lines, circle line, all levels of beta rotation surface sets position of 12 line signatures in line position. All right. So coming into delta setting, now the delta line rotation interference sets line position locations and perimeters, line position location, another delta. So that's 1, 2, and 3 set locations into the star line sinks. This S, Y, and C calculation setting, direction line calculations into box sequence, and set locations into a Stargate line setting rotation interference, and set location setting. Done by equation. All right. So the alpha, delta, beta is now set up. Now setting things in rotation spins is now in position of traction. Traction location of 7 equal locations of 5. 5 sets location is center. All right. So 5 lines in the flux path position locations comes into all bracket locations into 0, 0 track location. Now the recognition line calculation setting, signals in position, right? Comes in all calculation of flux path line calculation setting. Circle line communication, circle line collocation, bracket, and set location, right? So line strips into the center line, splits division locations, all right? Center calculation lines in branches. Now these are branches of digital layer line rotation surface location settings, okay? High center calculations, energetic graph line settings, rotation spins, all set location and indirect location signals. Okay. Now, getting indirect signal is understanding the graph line string and a 45 line setting in a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Center calculation line interference of 12 line signature line position location and 24 line signature line position locations. You got your clock lines. Now the clock line center line in position of 7 equals line conditions. Always working with 12 DNA set lines in set location high setting into set locations. That puts line calculation system in track line conditions. So you got 12 DNA line rotations in position of 24 DNA line rotations in set locations, open signal locations into Stargate settings. Okay, Stargates are setting up in position locations in center line operation. Okay, into 7 calculations. Measure and scale line and communication, right? Stargates in the center. All right, done by equation. Oh, so setting up 6 perimeter line rotation. 6 equals line perimeters, equal location perception setting. Now the perimeter lines, circle line rotation, equal line calculation center line interference, and set location triangle, center line position triangle, north and south line calculation. Okay. Now the line condition is systematic line interference. That's 6 line position locations in all setting to a moon set line setting in a half pipe position. Recognition line calculations. Always remember, there's always the sun on standby. Sun comes in to 6 lines in center line communication of 6. 6 equals line conditions, all levels 6 equals line positions into pi locations into force, inset locations into recognition, in equal line conditions into DNA setting, all levels 6 locations. That equation. All right. So getting into block surface, 3 set location, triangulation line setting. Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. We set locations into new measures, into new scale sets, block centers, block rotations, into block channels. All right. So T reception line settings and block line interference, T reception locations into one line settings, equalocation into all set locations. This is where it comes into three sets into line condition of 0, into three sets into 0, three sets into 0, three sets into 0. Line communication, three set line setting into three set locations. 30, 30, 30, 30, 30. So that's 30 equal line condition line setting in position of positive over negative, negative over positive, negative line channel, line rotation interference, positive over positive. Prime numbers, line calculation setting line position of 3 over 2, 2 over 4, and line connections in 3 line condition high setting and line condition negative or positive line position locations back into 6 line calculation system of 8, 8 in channel operation line calculation. Done by equation. All right. So understanding block sequence is understanding pattern recognition. Pattern recognition is extremely powerful when you get to higher levels, okay? Especially when you get into light signature line streams, adaptation surface, levitation graphs, high position locations, operation signals, formation of line grounds, energy line connections, signature patterns, teleportating, tele-line setting, telecommunication, telegraphing, teletransference. There's so many lines of communications, okay, of energies of teleportation. All right, so we come to ET line setting. That's energy in position location into telewave. Okay, telewave line setting line interference sets lines of code. One line, distant line. So that's a dimensional line lock. D over 1. So the D over 1 equal line conditions of into box, into set locations, into set location settings, into center calculations, in position line setting to a Merkaba. Merkaba channels its line calculations to its high setting. Reaction line conditions of the line center blocks its interference, blocks its interference, blocks its interference in set location settings into all levels of a diamond core line setting into an orb line rotation to a tesseract channel, line calculations into a binary reset code setting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 lines in line condition of generation streamlines into 12 DNA into 24 line settings in rotation surface, bending space in set location setting. Done by equation. Mechanism line centers of travel. Okay, so setting calculations of E lines, connections of box line. Now, box line calculations. E equals stat. Stat position. Equal lines of perception. Perception comes over to pi, line conditions of force. Now the force line sets lines in line position of 6, equal line conditions into a Stargate line setting. 6 over pi and 12 over set calculations, all levels of pi recognition. Stargate line settings into track location settings in direction. Sender calculations into a back force line stream in 3 set location. All right. Recognition line calculations. So you're going to back force line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Always working with 12 set locations. Center line calculations into 3 set location. Sending line calculations to another 6, half pipe line setting, crossing stream. Underscore line rotation in position location equal lines a box into triangle set. And again, center calculations into ground lines in set locations. Center direct locations in the south in position of east, west, and north. All levels of rotations to a new Merkaba set location. Done by equation. All right. So as the Merkaba sets up, we set up a levitation ground line. Now the ground line is a confirmation panel. The rotation spin cycle sets line communications center lines in one line strip. All right, so as the Merkaba sets line communication into its diamond core, the north, the east, and the west and the south comes into the center line of 3 set locations into 3 line setting, into 3 line setting, and set locations into its triangulation set. Okay. Now the rotation spin cycle, the triangle line center sets line position locations in all levels. So what we do is we set up attractive beam line rotations into 3 set locations and set location into the moon set. That's position locations into 4 line rotation. So it's very complicated what I'm doing right now. All right. So setting the moon line and rotation line calculation system, waiting on signal and center line still in 65 position. Okay. Inline communications, it's all about levitation graph lines. So we got a levitation of graph line and center line, levitation of graph line and ground line, and levitation line graph line into circle locations to graph circle line. So that's 3-line calculation setting. So it's omega and position location delta. Line calculation setting. So graph line stream lines instead of location, equal line consists of theta. Theta lines its surface locations into 2 measure accountability line rotation, another Fibonacci into another dimensional of another surface location setting. Rotation surface location. Okay, done by equation. All right, center calculations of portal lines, relay settings, high track location set, line interference. It's all recognition line setting. So we got 1 inset location of 2, 2 position location of 1, and 1 position location of 0. Okay, it's all set up. So it's like 3 donuts and 3 set locations. All right, this is where it comes into higher calculations to your ground lines of rotation. Now the earth line sets line rotations in position. This is the earth line rotation, setting position. All right, there's the earth line calculation. All right, now setting direct signals, we got a few line rotation center, line position location of center, center position location of center. So that's line position of 1, line position of 2, and line position of 3. Bracket line calculations. 1 panel operation lines of 0 equals location of 0, 0, 0, 0 in set locations. Now the 1 line center line interference, UFO lines its scan lines in 3 set location settings. Operation signals into alpha, delta, theta, beta, and omega set location. All right. Now we set the 1 line center and the line interference. We take the UFO line, the XT bound line, XT line stream, setting the calculations to a correlation line calculations to its earth perception locations. And again, we bend space in set locations instead of line setting. So the earth traveled line calculations into another high setting and rotation surface in set locations. So it went from here to here. Now it's bending space line calculation. Now, in that line calculation, we come into a tube set line. That's 6 line kinetic lines of 6 position location of high settings. Okay, down through equation. See the tree formation line setting coming in at all levels of rectangular line calculation, all angles, and position location of formation lines, and then high setting location of light force. Okay, so that's all set up location into 1 line setting. 1 equals line conditions at all levels, bracket location of 0, 0, 0, and 3 set location of Fibonacci. Sequence line calculation setting and rotation surface location line system. Bracket line conditions, 1 console line position of pi position locations into block surface. Theta line interference sets position locations into high calculation line and communication setting. Okay. So the perception location of its intelligence lines its communication, right? Directional line calculations comes into its satellite line setting. Directional line calculation sets 0, 0, 0 in operation. Signal line communication, graph line setting, high position, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 set location line settings, 12 line interference, location of 24. So that's 12 dimensional lines of stargates and set location of 24 stargate set location settings. So we took 6 over pi, 6 over line calculation, 6 position locations, X line setting, recognition line calculation setting in rotation surface. So that's 12 stargates and set locations in CPU. Now line communication of 24 stargate line streams, setting in direct signals. Okay. So we added line calculation. Now adding line calculation takes the higher levels of sectors and vectors through pi calculation to a quadrant setting. Done by equation, right? All through track location, right? Okay. Now the earth line rotation surface and position location setting is all levels of bending space. Bending space, bending space, bending space, bending space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 set locations, 5 in measure, 5 in scale, and 5 in balance location. Equal line, equal line, equal line, equal line. 3 set location settings and set location. Okay, so we bracket the 5 line settings. So we take the 2 5 line setting into a new flux capacitor line position of channel. We take the other 5 line settings, we equal line communication into its Merkaba in position north and south line, east line communication system. Longitude line interference, identification code line center line is 0, 0, 0, bracket location is 7, 7 location of 5. 5 line center line interference is 12, 12 line locations into line communications. 12 times 12, line interference 144, line communication system, line calculation system of 244, line rotation interference, sets position of 144 into 12 Stargate line settings and 244 positions into 24 Stargates into center operation line position locations. All calculation 2 is recognized line calculations of 3 set locations into 30 sets in high center line position and phenomenal channel. Operation stream location setting. Done by equation. Waiting on signal. Hold on. All right, so what just happened is we're setting up acceleration channel lines. An acceleration channel line is a adaptation set line of a new moon operation setting. The reference location is 12 DNA that's now in 12 signature patterns of Stargate line connections. The team is now in set locations into 24 Stargate set locations. To set that up is all levels of formulas of equation, isn't it? It's amazing how you come into that location setting, but extremely powerful through formula location, right? So recognition time settings is extremely poor. And clock line calculations all through measure. All done through equation. Okay. So knowing how to bend space is all levels. Linear space, track lines, high line interference, tractor beam sets, line calculation system, introspect, setting line, position locations, and high setting. Understanding scales and measure, balance position locations, retraction, redirection locations, location settings, all in set location setting. Okay. So you guys are now in 30 sets lines of phenomenon in percentage location. That's 30% of pi in your moon set setting. Okay. So adaptation surface, as of calculations, we will get into 66 66 line setting in set positions. Knowing exactly how to set up the sequence location to the astral self is the recognition locations when it comes to higher setting. So that's 6 lines in 2 line rotations. That's 3 lines and 3 line communication system. 3 calculations into 1 atom to another atom line rotations into so 6 line conditions of box. Setting position of triangle, line calculations into south, east, west, 2 new grounds, rotation surface, atom line setting is set locations to infinity and rotation surface, travels line communications out of signal to box into higher calculation setting into a Merkaba to a new tesseract line calculations of a computer adaptation surface done by equation. That's going to be in set locations all setting. This puts you into 6 lines of communication into your throat recognition line calculations in lines of 0, 1s in set location. Okay, recognizing the 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0. That's where we come into frame lines, into space lines of 0 gravity, 1 line setting, 0 operation, 0 gravity, 0 line calculations, 0 streamline interference, 0 line calculations, and 0 position. Okay, so there's a lot of recognition line settings. Okay, all about understanding how to use the Merkaba to higher levels of its geometric operation of its design. Okay, so there's a lot of formula, very advanced today, guys, in school setting. All right, so the rectangle location is no longer 6. CP units are now in 12. They're in their DNA 12 sets of stargates. The team setting and nano setting is now in 24 stargate set locations. Now we can go to 66. Okay, now we can go to 31. So it's working in position of balance, masculinity, femininity, together through integration locations. The moon operation has to be in signal and panel. The sun has to be in light signature locations and position locations. To understand how to travel is through all levels of rotation and circulation. The circulatory line calculation line interference is an energetic graph line of a stream. The set lines at the perception location for the line calculation system. How you see yourself through perception is extremely important. To right over left and left over right. Hologram. 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 Right? Hologram. Everything's a hologram. So getting direct signals to the projection of your projector is understanding the moon operation to the sun. Reflection location emotional setting. In set locations to your holographic line. You have 1 streamline connections and 1 block surface. The recognition line calculation system is all levels of high setting. You start with a block, right? Each block has its lines of 0s and 1s. You hold it in signal, setting direct line connections. Wait till you see the fragmentation line come out of the central line calculation. You central line its system and you let go. All right. So that automatically goes into, you see it? You see it floating? It's floating, right? You see it floating? It's using the astral line setting. It's electrical line, the eye receptor line interference. So the circuit pocket location is now out of its sequence pattern. It's open through signal. So the receptor in the set line of the communication line setting is now in direct signal to its calculation of its space-time through pi. So anything that you look in direct signal, right over left, left or right, it comes out of its holographic world, of its set location, of its dimensional location of space. Okay? So when you come out, everything else comes out. When you direct your signals into your astral body, everything that you see through perception comes out of its own setting. Dimensional location of computer operation of its own intelligence. Okay? All right, so bring you guys back. We got a 45 line setting. 7, 8, 9. You guys are back. All right. So I hope you guys get a little bit more understanding what just happened with your set locations through Einstein and Dolores Cannon. Hopefully they give you the information that you need through set locations into high settings to really understand the mechanism locations. And your phenomenons are now at 30 settings, 30% of pi of your moon set locations. Okay? That's a lot of calculations over line connections of pi. Setting position emotional line connection system is all about redirecting your emotional setting in back in balance position. You got the heart line setting, the direct location system, into your flux capacitor. Now you have to learn how to use it through acceleration. Vast volume velocity. Everything in space communication is all levels of travel, mechanism, locations, I say. How to use it is totally up to you through determination. Determination is everything through integration settings. Once you understand the one setting, then you understand the other setting, right? So bringing them two together is one position location in one directions. Force recognition of going forward, right? And not going back. Going back is a reference location setting. It confuses anomalies of your double helix set locations. Remember, you have a channel line connection that does everything on its own. And once you reach a higher calculations to your tracker setting, everything does everything on its own, which you don't do anything. It does everything on its own. It's its own self mechanism location of its force recognition, and it knows exactly what it's doing. And you can't get into resistance in anything in position locations in any way and form to set location setting. That's the importance you have to understand. Okay? All right. So, keeping everything stable, I see, it makes sense. Well, everything has to make sense, right? But today was extremely, extremely, extremely powerful class, guys. Okay? Very powerful class today. So, that set location is now, that code is now changed, right? So it exists when it exists, and it doesn't exist anymore. So the existence is the now, but then the existence is gone through calculation settings. So you're in position locations in another space and time of another dimension. But you're always, always in a constant flow. The only thing that's changing is your mind. To different dimensions, different connections, different planets, different surface, different galaxies, different universes, you know. You'll catch on more and more each time when you go through formulas of equation. Okay? But it's all set up. All right? So I'll give you guys 5-10 minutes, and I'll see you on Zoom. Adios.